Welcome to the CTCL virtual day at Antioch College. Before we get started with our presentation, just a few quick housekeeping items. To ask questions of the panelists, please feel free to use the Q&A button at any time during the session. And just a reminder, your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists will not be able to see or hear you. And also, please feel free to sign up for more sessions at the same website where you signed up for this morning session. In about 1 week from today, a recording of this session will be available on the same registration website. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our panelist from Antioch College.
All right, thank you. So Antioch College is a small private liberal arts institution located in Yellow Springs, Ohio. It's about a half hour from Dayton, hour to Cincinnati, hour to Columbus. The college was founded in 1850, began operation in 1853. Horace Mann was the first president. He's regarded as the father of the American public school system. He was a state representative from Massachusetts. And at the college's first commencement, he coined the phrase, "Be ashamed to die until you've won some victory for humanity." And that has since been woven into the mission and vision of the college. The college has always had progressive mission since its inception. And today, social justice and environmental stewardship are large aspects of our curriculum. Academics at Antioch are centered on these 4 pillars: academic intersectionality, environmental sustainability, discussion-based classes, and experiential education. Students self-design majors among the arts, humanities, sciences, and social sciences. The self-design major allows students to take an interdisciplinary approach to their studies, blending these different areas. These here give you an idea of what you can do within those 4 major academic divisions. This is not completely exhaustive, but generally shows what is doable within our curriculum. Students can incorporate science and art, even with language and culture studies, for instance, but we'll go into more details. This gives you an idea of what typical classroom looks like at Antioch. Most of the time they are smaller than this, but they are discussion-based. As I mentioned, we offer a 4-to-1 student-faculty ratio. So students work very closely with their professors, and there's also plenty of opportunity for independent study as well. So the self-design major is, as I mentioned, allows students to really tailor their education to their individual unique interests. And so the academic model at Antioch is combining the classroom with the real world. So students develop their knowledge and skills in the classroom, then they get to apply these newly learned skills and knowledge in the real world through co-op program. And then once students are out in the real world, they get all these great new experiences, develop new perspectives, learn new things, and they bring that back with them into the classroom. So it creates an environment very rich for class discussion. So when students self-design a major, it does ask more of them than if they were to just pre-select a major. Students have to conceptualize an idea, and then they have to really plan out their years of study with their advisor. And so these students have to learn these skills that are highly valuable for grad school and a career. So Antioch graduates do very well right after graduation with finding employment or getting into grad school. So we get students acquainted with Antioch through the Antioch Commons course, kind of introduces students to campus and the resources, develop some research skills, and they get acquainted with the faculty. And so students are really they use this time to explore interests and try new things. So by their second year, they're ready to declare their major. Students do not declare their major until halfway through their sophomore year. And so by that time, they have 2 co-op jobs under their belt. So Antioch students generally have a much more clear sense declaring their major well into their second year than they would just right off the bat upon arrival on campus. So they have to provide a statement of inquiry which outlines the path that they want to study. So here are some examples of self-assigned majors in recent years. It really runs the gamut of what students can do. The parameters for self-designed majors are course offerings and faculty expertise. So students can't just self-design a major out of anything like engineering, for example, because we do not offer it. So students can also blend Spanish and French language and culture into their self-design major as well. Credit is given on a proficiency basis, which is demonstrated through the oral proficiency interview. So students that are proficient in another language upon arrival can actually test out and they would just get credit then. But if they don't, students do a 1 or 3 year track of language and culture program. And students are generally pushed to do at least 1 international co-op experience. So that is really why we have the language and culture program, to prepare students to go abroad. Co-op, it's like the shortest way to put it is like an immersive internship. So these experiences last 12 weeks at a time. So 12 of the 13 weeks of a quarter. Students are required to have 3 of these experiences over the 4 years of study, with an optional 4th after graduation. And most of these are paid. If they're not paid, they're usually compensated with room and board. All students do it regardless of major, and they can also co-op outside their declared major because it's all about meaningful work for the individual. And I have a short clip to show for this.
For educating experientially, I would say that Antioch is at the top of our game in terms of bringing students not only experiential opportunities within their classes, all over campus. I would say our campus is really a learning laboratory. Students are engaged everywhere, from the farm to the studios at WYSO radio station. We see them out at the Japanese tea garden, over at the Foundry Theater doing their work there. We have students working at foundations, nonprofits, successful business and companies, and looking at what that feels like to be out in the world, being a part of a real team, making purposeful projects come to reality. So then when our students come back to campus, they're even more focused and decided upon how they're going to own their education moving forward towards that trajectory. Looking at their interests and then seeing how does that translate from a classroom into a professional organization. And I'd say the program is really interested in integrative learning, bringing an opportunity for the full person to find meaningful pathways during their time at Antioch as a student and beyond.
So we've had students go all around the world. Antioch students have co-opted in every continent aside from Antarctica. A lot of students have gone to Latin America and much of the world. So this will show you kind of how all of this culminates together. I'll show you how Rachel spent her 4 years at Antioch. She graduated in 2019. So working closely with her advisors, she established that her primary interests were in public policy, educational policy, and city government. So with this in mind, she did her first co-op as a media specialist in Washington, D.C. And then did her second co-op in Columbus, working with some elected officials. And then decided to design her major as food systems, political economy, and that combined the 4 areas of political economy, public policy, cultural anthropology, and sustainability. She did her third co-op as a teaching assistant at the elementary school here in Yellow Springs, and it was there she figured out how she wanted to direct her senior capstone project, she noticed how lacking the nutritional value was in these school lunches, and decided to do her project on that. As the political economy of public school lunches, a call for a cultural shift towards a healthy and sustainable food system. And then she did her fourth and bonus co-op as a radio production assistant at WYSO, the radio station right off campus. So our campus is very small. Our student body is about 115 students. We're a deliberately small campus. It's very community oriented. There are numerous student interest groups for all different hobbies and identities. And much of our campus does center around sustainability, as I mentioned before, and academics. Much of our energy use is offset by solar panels and geothermal units. But in regards to campus life, there's always something going on. There are different performances and speakers on campus. And student life is always arranging events, things like that for students to do in the evenings and on weekends, different art shows on campus. And then even when students are studying in the classroom and not on co-op, they have plenty of opportunity to go off campus. A lot of the classes take field trips, as you can see in the bottom right there. We've received numerous awards for our sustainability practices. We offer, aside from sustainable energy use, we have farm to table dining as well. So during the growing seasons, about a third of the produce served in the kitchen comes right off the farm. If it doesn't come off the farm, we tend to get most of our supplies from local sources around Dayton, Cincinnati, and Columbus. The farm is primarily staffed by students. It's a pretty popular campus job. Students can also co-op there as well if they didn't want to go far. There's only one staff member, and that's the farm manager. Let's see what else to mention. It is one of our learning laboratories. Science classes, they get their dye from the labs right off the farm. And they do field research in the Glen Helen Nature Preserve right across the street from campus. Everything in the kitchen's made from scratch. We don't use any large companies like Sodexo or anything like that. The menu is seasonal as well. The Glen Helen is where the Yellow Spring is, that the town is named after. It's a 1,000-acre nature preserve, 20-some miles of footpaths. It's a great place to go hike. It's a pretty popular place for tourists to come when they come to town. I did mention WYSO earlier when I mentioned Rachel's studies. It was started by students in the 1950s and grew to what it is today as NPR and BBC affiliate. Students have plenty of hands-on experience there. They can get live on air experience, learn sound and podcasting, things like that. The student pictured graduated a few years ago and currently works for a radio station in Chicago from the experience that they received here. Since the 1930s, Antioch has had shared governance. So it goes beyond typical student government. Students actually are elected to a couple governing bodies, so along with faculty and staff. So students actually have a say in policy changes and can sit on hiring boards and things like that. The Wellness Center is another significant aspect of campus. It was renovated back in 2012. We have a competition like swimming pool, fully loaded weight room, cardio machines, all that. Students can do yoga and salsa dancing classes, all that stuff. So that's all included in the student fees. But of course, it's not open right now due to COVID. So Yellow Springs, is the village that the college is located in. It's a very, very close relationship with the village. Campus is about a 5 to 10 minute walk to the central business district. And Yellow Springs, it's like a kind of an eclectic arts-oriented community. Lots of events throughout the year, different festivals and things like that. Pretty much all local shops and restaurants, aside from a gas station and a Subway. So there's always something going on. If you come to Yellow Springs on the weekends, it's always very, very busy. It's definitely like a destination town. The application is free on Common App. It's also test optional. We don't require the ACT and SAT, but we do accept them. And we do holistic reviews of all applications. So I always remind students that with a holistic review, your essay is worth just as much as your transcripts and vice versa. The essay is where students can really speak of why they are interested in Antioch and what drew them here and things like that. They can also address some discrepancies in the transcripts because we understand that there are various life circumstances. So if a student hit a rough patch and it negatively affected their transcripts, that can be explained in the essay. Sometimes you also do interviews. They're a great way to get to know students much more clearly because sometimes they don't really, their interests and things like that don't really shine through without that, but the interview allows us to get to know students much more thoroughly. We even provide questions ahead of time so students can form their best answers ahead of the interview. The application cycle, we offer early decision 1, 2, regular decision, and rolling after that. So we do accept applications in the spring. We are committed to affordability at Antioch. 100% of admitted students receive financial aid, and we meet 100% of financial need based on the FAFSA. Late 2019, we rolled out the Antioch College Works program, and that allows all students that are eligible for the Pell Grant to receive full tuition scholarships. It also includes guaranteed campus or community-based work, international co-op experience, and launch placements after graduation into a job through the co-op office. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Antioch. As you have a few minutes, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. Sometimes we ask panelists about their favorite event or tradition on campus, or what they like most about the school that they did not have an opportunity to present on during their formal presentation. So the floor is yours if you wish to add anything to those who may be watching this video later.
Are we cutting this at all in this part, or is this just all?
No.
So I guess I would mention, my favorite aspect of campus is the community. It is a really special, tight-knit place. As I mentioned, it is very small, but it is a place where people can develop very strong, lasting relationships. It's not at every college where students get to work closely and develop personal relationships with faculty. And you even call the faculty and even the president by their first name. So it's a very, very casual, kind of like a large family of sorts, I guess. So I've heard some people put it that way. I do really appreciate the farm to table dining program too. I think that really sets us apart as a community with how much we really value, the food that the community eats. It's not just like burgers and frozen burgers and pizza all the time. It's actually nutritious and very, very, very tasty. So that's it. Those are my favorite things about the community. I also do like how with the self-design major allows students to really tailor their education to their own unique interests. I think the self-design major really allows students to get more out of their education than a traditional major might. For instance, if a student is generally interested in psychology, it would still be like a psychology degree, but they're able to incorporate other interests and still getting those prerequisites if they did want to go into like a psychology program. So I think it allows students to do much more interesting things with their studies than just selecting a major and a minor and creating new majors. So I really like that.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the great presentation today. I'm going to go ahead and just do a little wrap up at the end of our session this morning. Want to thank again Antioch for joining us today. And thank you to our attendees and those who will be watching this online. When you close this window, you'll receive a very quick 4-question survey. And also remind you to go ahead and sign up for additional sessions, the same website where you signed up for today's session. And again, about 1 week from today, a recording of this session will be available on that same website. But thank you, Antioch. Thank you for your information. Thank you, attendees, and good luck in your college searches.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
You too.